Hey, Street Talk and Other Stuff. Mike, Mad Dog, Magnati, thanks for tuning in today. We have got a very interesting show for you today. It's going to be on a topic that is affecting the Christian church nationwide and specifically right here in our valley. And I have got a good guest. I've got an expert today to speak with me. And the topic is going to be this idea that's being promoted that empathy is sin. Okay, we're going to talk about that as much in length and in detail as we can in these brief 30 minutes, but I want you to stick around because we will be right back. Street Talk and Other Stuff. See you in a minute.
Global Car Care has the best customer service in the Valley. From the moment you walk in the door, their goal is to help you stay on the road, so you can keep doing what's important to you. Global Car Care certified ASE mechanics stand behind your automotive repairs.
Right now at Les Schwab Tires, it's the Best for Less sales event. Save up to $120 instantly on a set of 4 tires. Choose from a wide selection of our longest-lasting, best-performing tires, and every tire is covered by America's best tire warranty. With a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, no hassle road hazard protection, and free maintenance for the life of your tires. It's our best deal on our best tires with the best service in the business. Get more from less.
Hi, I'm Amanda Walden with A. Walden Insurance Group. Medicare can be overwhelming, but you don't have to figure it out alone. I've been helping people understand their Medicare options for over a decade. Medicare isn't a one-size-fits-all. I'll help you understand your coverage options so you can feel confident in your decisions. Let's find the right Medicare plan for you. Call me today or come and see me at my office located on South Chelan Avenue in Wenatchee between the YMCA and the Social Security office. I look forward to meeting you soon.
Central Washington Water is home to the Hot Spring Spa for over 45 years. Come see the Freshwater Smart IQ. It monitors your saltwater spa's pH balance, chlorine, and more. Or the cold plunge tub that will leave you feeling rejuvenated. Plug-and-play spas make hot tubbing easy. With great financing available, cold water, salt water, hot water, Central Washington Water has a spa for your budget and your lifestyle. Stop by today.
Street Talk and Other Stuff, and I want to introduce somebody who you may be familiar with, my good friend, Tim Wilbur, one of my pastors. And Tim, see, here's the thing about Tim Wilbur. I think probably the majority of churchgoers in this community have one way or another sat under your ministry, either coming to your church, okay, or people call you for funerals, weddings, that type of thing. Yeah. This man, he and Jerry Beebe are the 2 longest serving pastors of the same church, almost 40 years at New Song, which he recently retired from.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if I needed an expert to talk about the issues about Christianity, Tim would be the first person to come to my mind, because not only your knowledge, but your heart, my friend, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So just a little bit about yourself, and then let's get into this topic that we're going to talk about today.
Well, I've been in the Valley about 40 years, and you're right, I've done a lot of weddings and funerals for people in the community. Not necessarily all of them that went to New Song, but I always wanted to be available for anyone who needed help. And through my good friends Joe and Carrie Merritt, who owned Jones & Jones for a lot of years, they made that a possibility for me. And these days, after retirement, I volunteer over at the Museum and Cultural Center, and I started a little nonprofit called Pastor's Friend Ministry, where I'm just trying to be supportive of pastors and encourage them and be a listening ear. Because these aren't easy days for some pastors.
No, it's not. It's a tough job in the first place. Yeah.
Try to put my years of experience continue to put it to good use. So,
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, now the reason I wanted Tim on today was because there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Rigney who wrote a book called Empathy is a Sin or something like that.
Yeah.
And recently it came to local attention because two leaders at Great City Church, Josh McPherson and Adam James, had a long discussion about this. And at one point, McPherson said that empathy is a sin and the word should be struck from the Christian vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay, so your take on that, okay?
Well, when I first heard the interview, when I first heard, I think, heard him say it, I was taken aback because empathy is such a big part of who we are as Christians and who Christ was.
Exactly, yes.
I mean, one of the most popular and well-known parables that Jesus told was the parable of the Good Samaritan, and
Right.
everyone knows this parable, whether they go to church or not.
Yeah, even non-believers. You say the Good Samaritan and people know the story we're talking about.
And there are even Good Samaritan laws because people know about the Good Samaritan, and Jesus talked about the Good Samaritan and about loving our neighbor, and that love is not just that you say words to people, but there are actions that you do for people who have been marginalized and people that you don't necessarily have anything in common with, or people that you necessarily like.
And it's a willingness to be understanding of their situation and, accept that they have some legitimacy about what they're going through.
And to be supportive of that.
Right.
I mean, the Samaritan took money out of his own pocket and gave it to the innkeeper, so it cost him something. And
not only that, but it was his time, the resource of time and involvement. It wasn't a convenience for him to do this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
no problem. He already knew that this was a Jew, someone in his own mind that he disliked and knew disliked him. But in the parable, he broke through that barrier and didn't allow that to become an obstacle to caring for the individual. And when I heard Josh say what he said about empathy being a sin, first of all, you got to look. I mean, my Bible. It's not beyond American Christianity to make up things that are sins.
Right.
I mean, being raised as an evangelical and fundamentalist, there were all kinds of things that my pastor and the church made up as sins. When I was growing up, your hair's on your ears, that's a sin. Sure. Going to movies, all of those things. So here's one of those things, not in the Bible, but named as a sin. And in my mind, there are a group of people we disapprove of, and so if we're going to be asked to care about them, or to reach out to them, or to give them any space at all, then we're going to name that as a sin.
Right.
We can't do that because for us to do that, that's going to be sinful.
Right, because it's saying it's taking us away from our base our base foundation of Christianity, and to accept this. And I'm going to say flat out, because it comes out in the interview later, and also comes out in Rigney's interview with another guy, that this is an attitude about the queer community. Okay, is that if you have any affirmation for them, it's because you're saying, oh, these poor people, they were just born that way. So it's taking me away from the Christian teaching that if you're homosexual, you're a sin and you're automatically going to hell. And by understanding and affirming these people, that's what they're saying empathy is. But can I read a definition of empathy?
Yeah,
okay.
Please do.
Okay, this is from the dictionary. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Oh, horrible thing. Okay, and here's another. Emotion research has generally defined empathy as the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability of imagining what someone else might be thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so for us to do this somehow is sinful because it's, in their minds, removing us from the basic tenets of Christianity. It's flabbergasting to me.
It really is, and it's also based upon the preconceived notion that American Christianity, or we as Christians, are always right.
No, we're not. No. Even the Apostle Paul says, "Let God be true and every man a liar."
Every man a liar, and there is this sense among American evangelicals that They should be in charge because they're the ones who are right, and everyone else who disagrees with them are wrong. Rather than coming to the table with a teachable spirit and listening to stories and saying, I want to learn about this, or I want to hear a different approach to an interpretation of this scripture. But they come with the mindset of, we're right, you are wrong if you disagree with us, and therefore we should have our way, and you should just be quiet.
And do what we tell you.
And do exactly what we tell you. As if that has been successful.
Right.
As if our world has been better because of that. And as if that has made Christianity successful here and around the world. And as someone who's been in India and the Philippines and Baja California and seeing what has happened in those cultures where evangelicalism has basically been forced onto other cultures, I can tell you it has not been successful.
Okay. Now, something else I want to mention is that they basically place the blame for this empathetic overreaction to things on women. All right, now, my wife Rosemary, very
wonderful woman.
Very empathetic woman.
Yes.
Now, okay, for years, due to the empathetic nature of her heart, based on her life and her experience, she's transformed that into service for other people. She taught Bible study fellowship for years. She ran our church's youth program for 19 years with no experience or education on how to do it. And one of the that empathy is a problem with women. I'm sorry, I get a little fired up about this. She and a number of women, some of them from New Song Church, founded an organization called Young Lives, which is an offshoot from Young Life, which was a ministry to teen moms and pregnant teens.
Yes.
She hung with these girls all the time, and she would say, Mike, we have to go to a birthday party for this kid. And she would drag me places that in a previous life I would not go without a gun and a ballistic vest. Okay, so please don't tell me that my wife is vulnerable to the sin of empathy, because she has been an incredible Christian minister to people due to the fact that she cares about these people and has been willing to understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
And your wife is the same.
Right. My wife is a behavioral health therapist here in the Valley, and a very empathetic person, and that's what makes her so successful. People
they love Shirley.
Yes, they love Shirley, whether in a professional or a non-professional way. At one church we were at, they asked me to leave the church and asked Shirley to stay.
I can understand that.
You can understand that completely.
Yeah.
But to make a statement that husbands need to be controlling who their wives spend time with because wives are more susceptible to the sin of empathy. It's male superiority, male exceptionalism.
Big time.
Yeah, at its worst, and the patriarchy at its worst. And it's mind-boggling to me that they have the audacity to say such things and feel as if they're right in saying them with no biblical. They talk about being biblical in all that they do, and there's no biblical basis for what they say.
Jesus is the example of empathy. Even the book of Hebrews says he took upon our nature so he would understand us.
Yes.
Okay? Being sinless, he took on sin to himself. I mean, the whole book of Hebrews, Paul describes the same thing. He became like us. Okay,
Right.
in these recent commercials, I don't know who's seen them, but the one, He Gets Us.
He Gets Us,
Oh, now I don't
yes.
know who's putting those out, and some people have criticized him, but it's true. He does.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. God becoming man and coming to visit us so he would understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
Okay? And it would take the steps to do what was necessary to reconcile us to the Father who loves us. All of us.
All of us. When the woman who had the alabaster jar of oil and was
right.
anointing his feet. He's at the Pharisee's house, and the Pharisee is just appalled.
Right.
You know, if this man knew what kind of a
don't you know what woman this is?
Yeah, and Jesus says to Simon the Pharisee, the first thing he asks him, do you see this woman?
Sure.
And Simon wouldn't even look at her.
Right.
You know, he has no empathy for the woman. But Jesus has empathy for her because he turns away from Simon and looks at the woman and begins to praise her for what she's doing and says that she's going to be remembered for
because
this
of what
act.
she did. This is going to be remembered.
And he himself shows empathy for her. He cares about her because he cares about where she's been in her life.
Right, and he understands where she got there, okay? Which is just, I mean, the Old Testament saying God knows our hearts. I mean, think about that. He knows where we're coming from. That's why I have a hard time criticizing some people. People are really surprised about this. Oh, Mike, you criticize people all the time. Well, I do, okay? But let's take Donald Trump, for example. For all the issues with him, or even Adolf Hitler, God knows where these people came from. Okay, he understands them. Okay, now what the outcome is going to be for these folks, I'm not sure. But that's the whole point, that Jesus came to earth to be like us so he can understand us.
Right.
So
I think that's the power of the gospel, is that Jesus does understand where it is that we've come from, and he understands why it is that we are where we are, and that's why we show empathy.
Right.
Because Jesus empathizes with us, and that's why we listen to the queer community. That's why we listen to a divorcee. That's why we listen to people who are in pain. My friend Paul Young, who wrote The Shack, that's why he goes to the guys on death row. He listens to their stories.
Right.
Because, there are some bad men on death row.
Oh, no doubt.
They've done bad things.
No doubt.
But he loves these guys.
Right, because there is no sin line, okay? There is no line that says if you cross this sin, you're worse than the rest of us. So.
Yeah, and some of them have horrible stories in their own background.
Sure.
And he loves those guys because he gets a sense of where they have come from.
Right.
And I think that's the church, the American church, whether it's evangelical or not, we've lost our ability to just sit and listen to people's stories, to hear where they've come from, to understand. I see why. I have a better understanding of why maybe you do what you do, or you react the way that you react.
Right. Okay, well, look, we got to take a break. Okay, we've gone a little long because there's another topic I want to discuss when we come back, but we need to take a quick break. Street Talk and other stuff, talking with Pastor Tim Wilbur today, but you stick around, we will be right back. So.
Tour Moses Lake just a gas tank away. With its abundance of outdoor activities, Moses Lake is a great place to visit. From fishing and boating to exploring the city's attractions, there is no shortage of things to do. Whether you're enjoying any one of the variety of restaurants with the family or an adventure-filled day with friends, Moses Lake has something for everyone. Tour MosesLake.com and start your adventure today.
It's the NCWLIFE Community Calendar, brought to you by the Wenatchee Valley Dispute Resolution Center. Opening day for the Wenatchee Valley Farmers Market is Saturday, May 10th. Pick up your fresh, locally grown produce at the Wenatchee Valley Farmers Market every Saturday from 8 to 1. Early season favorites like asparagus, peas, radishes, potatoes, rhubarb, green beans, kale, plus starter plants, original arts and crafts, soaps, candles, plants, and lots of goodies to snack on. Celebrate this great country during Rockfest in Rock Island the last Saturday in June. Great music, great bands, great fun. It all happens at the Rock Island Golf Course. Mark your calendars and be prepared for family fun entertainment and live music until the fireworks start crackling. Contact info@rlstalent.com if you would like to help sponsor this event or bring your awesome food truck. Space is limited. Rockfest at the Rock Island Golf Course, June 28th.
Hey there, folks, Blueberry Carrie here to invite you on out to Blueberry Hills to experience some real treats. Take a look at our homemade cream pies, our amazing cheesecakes, and don't forget our famous banana pudding. Remember, we're more than just great treats. People come from all over the world to experience what has been called one of the best destination restaurants in the Pacific Northwest. So come on out and see what all the fuss is about. Blueberry Hills in Manson. It's where the world is coming to.
All right, now we're back. And there's something else I want to mention, that in the midst of this conversation about empathy being a sin, and I'm not talking behind the guy's back, because I sent him an email, Adam James, saying, please explain your comment where you equate the Me Too movement with victim culture. Now, the Me Too movement, of course, is where women have been courageous enough to stand up and say, I have been sexually assaulted. It talks about this. And, you're going to have to forgive me, and I did. I emailed Adam and said, look, am I understanding you correctly? As typical with these folks, no answer. No answer. And I'm not the only one. I mean, I'm a nobody.
A lot of us have reached out.
Yeah. Okay, but victim culture, this is people who perceive themselves as victims and don't accept the consequences of their own behavior, who just whine and complain, a heightened sensitivity to perceived slights, blame shifting, and self-pity. Now, again, I have a long experience. My professional life has been involved with sexual assault and victims. Right. To equate these people with victim culture, I'm sorry, it's just, I'm going to be polite and say just plain ignorant.
That is polite.
Okay?
Yeah,
that is polite.
Very polite.
I could be a lot stronger than that. And in my article in the One Natural World, I reached out. I said, look, if you want information on the dynamics of sexual assault, we'll talk about it. But you've had experience with these women as well, okay? To say that they're blame shifting, not taking responsibility to their behavior, is insulting, okay? I wasn't going to say that.
It is so insulting.
Trying to be polite.
And you are being polite, very polite. It's very tone deaf, to say the least, to put the blame onto them as if they were out of line somehow. Right. And the only way that you can say that they're out of line is if you believe in male exceptionalism and patriarchy, that you're not supposed to confront a male for bad behavior.
Right.
And if that's what you believe, and you can say that you don't believe that, but if you call the Me Too movement a victim culture, then you have already told me that you believe in toxic patriarchy.
Yes, and what most concerns me about this is that, like it or not, and I have talked about this on this show, I have written about it, sexual assault, the cover-ups of sexual assault, Christian people being involved in sexually assaulting, Christian leaders being involved in sexual assaulting is a problem with the church. It has been a problem with the church for a long time, and it's perpetuated by this attitude that women bring this on themselves. Okay? And it's just simply not true, and it is the patriarchal attitude that you're talking about, and it's not going to be changed until we in the church confront it and accept it for what it is, that sexual assault is a sin, it is not the victim's fault, and that when they come forth, it should be tested but believed, and it should not be covered up.
Absolutely.
And to think that these people are involved in victim culture, or that's what they're indulging is, I'm sorry, empathy isn't a sin, and ignorance isn't a sin either, unless the result of ignorance is that people are being harmed. Yeah, because of it,
and are put in a position to continue to be victimized, and what ends up happening is that a person who's not believed ends up leaving, and maybe going to another position, maybe leaving a great position and not continuing to pursue God's calling in their life, and you can blame them for that if you want to, but I would shift the blame onto the person or the people who did not believe them. Growing up, my father abandoned our family for another woman and another family, and we continued to go to our church. We were a church-going family. My father was a deacon, and well liked. I mean, my dad was at home he was a different guy than he was at church.
I met those guys.
Can you imagine that?
And I say, I don't care what other people think about you. If you ain't showing Jesus to your family, dude, you ain't cutting it.
But at church, I mean, everybody loved my dad, and all the women, thought he was the perfect husband. And so when he left and divorced my mom, she became as the one divorced, she was the sinner, because in their mind she must have done something wrong.
Right.
There must have been something that she did to make him want to leave, and so they made up a new sin. Rather than just my dad as the adulterer, she as the divorcee also became the sinner and labeled the sinner, and she ended up leaving the church. And she went back to it later on, but it was just too much for her. But as the victim, she was put through a different kind of hell.
Sure.
Because the man was protected.
Right.
A well-liked man. And that's what happens with pastors. They're well-liked, they have lots of support, and so no one wants to believe it, and that is dangerous for a pastor.
Yes,
very dangerous, because he begins to think he's bulletproof.
Yeah. No, I dealt with one back when I was a detective. This goes back a ways, but I know there's more current stories that I don't necessarily want to share. But this guy molested a girl up in north of here, okay? She came to me when she was 35. It happened when she was about 12. The morning she was going to be confirmed, okay? Well, he was moved to another church and then eventually defrocked. But his organization allowed him to be refrocked if he stayed out of trouble for 2 years. He was at a church down in California, which had just got a license for a daycare.
Oh my goodness.
So I called the cops down there, and which probably, I don't know, whatever, but they checked him. They found out he was a convicted sex offender out of Texas. He hadn't registered, so they went and arrested him. So it's just, but it is, I'm sorry to say it, because this is my church. This is your church, okay?
Exactly.
But this is...
this is why we care.
Right, very much so.
It isn't that we have a vendetta against anyone. This is why I care about this stuff, because this is the Church of Jesus Christ. And I spend a lot of time with people who don't go to church.
Right.
And they won't go to church because of stuff like this. And so maybe I want things to change for the better. And this stuff has to change.
Yes, and I constantly say to people, stop looking at us Christians and look at Jesus, okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't know anybody who would say Jesus was a jerk. Most even unbelievers would say, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the point, all right?
Yeah.
But just to reiterate this, I'm sorry, but for any church to have the attitude that that sexual assault survivors are part of victim culture is going to perpetuate the problem in the church, okay? And again, I'm trying to be polite. I know it's just ignorance, and ignorance isn't a bad thing. I mean, I'm ignorant of nuclear science. I'm ignorant of rocket science, okay, that type of thing. There are resources. If you are listening to this and you say, hey, look, I'm taking what Mike and Tim is saying, there are resources that will help you understand the dynamics of sexual assault, what victims go through, how these things happen, and how to properly deal with it, okay? Out there, so please reach out. There's plenty of people who would be willing to help with this.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't blame people for ignorance, but I do blame for it if you have it and if you're confronted with it and you won't do anything about it.
The New Testament does talk about willful ignorance. If you will not educate yourself about things like this because you do not want to change or because you are so set in your ways that you refuse to change, then that's a different issue. And that needs to be confronted.
And again, like I said, this is not talking behind anybody's back. I have reached out to these folks and asked for explanations and just simply have not gotten any answer. And I won't give you my opinion of that. But Tim, buddy,
it was good.
It's always good to see you.
Appreciate
it. Okay, and I know that you recently got back from a mission trip to
the Philippines.
Okay.
Spent 10 days there with some really good leaders.
And you still have contact with Jaydeep from India?
I do. He met me there. We were there together. And I'm going to see Pastor Ruben in Ensenada in a couple of weeks.
And you and Pastor Ruben, brothers from another mother for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so Street Talk and other stuff. Thanks very much for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. I hope that this has been a good show for you today. But we will see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.